specifically because this session is dedicated for foreign exchange and you're trading one currency in terms of the other. So if you're going long the euro, dollars, this means you are selling or going short the dollar with the cash proceeds that you get from that sale. You're going to buy with it the euro, and with that, if you're selling something, your intent is to be short, therefore you'll be looking to take the trade, the instrument that is the weakest, so that it can move and decline and go down. And you'll also be trying to buy the instrument that is the strongest, because you wish that it should go up. And if you buy the strongest and you sell the weakest, and you're trying to capture the difference between those two, then of course if you buy the strongest of the strong and you sell the weakest of the weak, this means that the move or the profit that you will get would be the most. And in that, we start doing that by looking at the currency indices itself, which is a basket of each index versus all the other currencies. It gives us a clearer picture. It puts us on the right side of the market, and it allows us not to get distracted by the small moves, because a dollar index is the dollar versus all the currencies out there, and it gives us a much bigger or a much better picture with regards to the dollar, so we can make a decision. As you see on the left hand side, on the right hand side of the screen, you will see that I identify each currency with a number of pluses and minuses. The more pluses, the more stronger it is. The more minuses, the weaker it is. And that of course is primarily how we do our choice and create the hierarchy in what are we going to buy and what we're going to sell. Okay, so with that said, the first thing we are going to look for is right now is for the we're going to look at the dollar index, which is now, as you know, this is the most liquid, of course, and it is the most important of all currencies. So anyway, so let me clear this out so we can have a clear picture. Okay, hi guys. Okay, since we got started, let's get. So the first thing we look at is the US dollar, because that is the most liquid currency and it is the most sensitive. And looking at the weekly dollar, you could see that yes, we are in a major downtrend, but as I have indicated to you from before, we have been since the 2006 pretty much forming a so-called bottom, if you will, because we haven't broken further to the downside. Rather, every time we have a momentum or a break to the downside, we actually bounce off and make a higher high. And that is the global picture, or the larger picture, if you will. And that indicates that we probably might be getting, we are in a downtrend, we are in a price acceptance zone or a congestion. We haven't resumed the downward trend. And as you can see from last week, that is a reversal signal, and it is also a buy signal, if you will, with regards to the dollar. And the dollar closed the week at 78.15. That's based on the index. And you can see here that the last 3 days, including the last Friday, which we had the unemployment, if we had that unemployment, whatever that number is, and we ended Friday on such a positive note, That is a very good indication of the underlying buying that is coming in the dollar. So with this, that is a buy signal, a strong buy signal in the dollar. The close, the high of the week was the 78.32. We closed the week at the 78.15. That is a pretty good close, and it should give us a continuation to the upside, and we should be looking for another test of the structural point at 79.05. So we do have at least another 100 points or so to go to the upside in the dollar, and we should be expecting this move this week. So 1 second, guys. Okay, guys. So that, as I said, is a strong buy signal, and we should be looking for the dollar to go up and test around the 79. Now, that for us is an indication, quite a strong indication for the dollar, and the dollar now, as I said, we should be looking to be buyers of the dollar. Now, to confirm that, or to continue making our assessment, we need to look at the other currencies. So the next currency we'll be looking at is the British pound, and if we look at the weekly for the pound, it is it closed above, based on the index, above the 159 level, which was our buy signal from last week. And again, we do not have any sell signal as of yet on the British pound, so the British pound is reasonably strong, and we should be looking at the pound as one of the currencies that will be looking to be on our buy list. So the dollar is on our buy list, the British pound as a British pound on our buy list, and we're going to see what other currencies are on our buy list, and then we're going to select our sell list, and then we're going to make a choice which one is which. If you look at the daily British pound, you can see that the picture is not as positive as what we have in on the weekly chart. The picture on the weekly chart is actually much more positive than the picture that we have on the daily chart for the British pound. Again, the reason behind that is you want to think of the trends and of the price action as it starts like a ripple effect. The trend starts changing direction from the smaller time frame to the bigger time frame, to the bigger time frame, to the bigger time frame, to the bigger time frame. So you can start having a trend change on a 5 minutes, and then you'll see a trend change on a 15, and a trend change on a much bigger time frame. So with that, this is not particularly a trend change as of yet in the British pound, but it has sold off from the 162.71. It's coming back. It is not that negative of a close, but it should give us an indication that probably it might go up a little bit. Okay, so the pound is the next one we want to look at, we're going to look at the euro dollar. And as you see, the dollar now is, the euro I mean, if we look at the weekly chart for the euro, you will see that picture that you see here is rather negative for the euro, because for 2 weeks we have traded above the 136.75. This is all based on the index, only to turn around and fail twice. And this week we closed the week right below the structural point, and that indicates that the euro now is actually much weaker than the British pound, and it is also weaker than it looks like to be a sell signal for us right now. So the euro should be on our top of our list as far as the currencies that we have chosen right now to be on our sell signal. So that is quite a negative close for the euro, and you can see that it's that kind of a range, if you will, for the week, and that kind of a close is quite negative with regards to the euro. You can see that also on the daily chart, and it closed the week, the low of the week was 135.38, and we just bounced above the week about 50 pips of the low, which is not particularly too encouraging. So we should be looking for the euro to continue down. Okay, now if we go and look at, I'm keeping the Australian for a second later for towards the end, because there is a reason I'm doing that. So we're going now to look at the Japanese yen, and as you can see from the yen, it also had quite a negative move on the daily charts for last week. This is quite negative. This is a confirmed sell signal. I'm not looking at candlesticks per se. We're trying to identify strength and weakness. We're trying to see how the traders are behaving. We're trying to see the mood of the traders and what are they looking. Are they accumulating or they're selling? A candlestick is nothing more than a glorified bar chart, and the idea is you're looking at the structure and you're looking at to identify reference points, and this is what we go in detail about in the course, because we're not looking at the candlesticks from what is a harami, and what we are focusing on the price action. So with this, that is quite a negative setup for the Japanese yen. That's an extremely weak setup for the yen. So the yen is extremely weak. So if I'm going to put my hierarchy now, so I'll put, for example, the US dollar is pretty strong. The second in strength, I would put probably the British pound. It is not magnificently strong, but it is kind of strong. The yen, this is a very bearish or a very negative setup for the yen. So the yen is, I will put actually 3 because that is very negative for the yen. If I'm going to look now at the next one, which is the Swiss franc, you could see actually that the Swiss is as weak as the Japanese yen, because it also has turned around after making a big move to the upside, and it has turned around and it closed the week at 104.77, right below the structural points. So that again is very weak. So the yen and the Swiss franc are extremely weak. Now what leaves us with is the two currencies, which is the Australian dollar and the Canadian dollar. So if we look at the Aussie, you can see that the Australian is still in a major uptrend. All what we had, if you look at the weekly chart, this is extremely strong. It looks like it wants to continue to the upside. So even though if I look at the daily, I would see that I have a minor sell signal in the Aussie. That is a minor sell signal, so it's not. When I have a sell signal like this in a major uptrend, I am not. What it does for me, it gives me at least a clarity of where to buy. Yes, it's in an uptrend. Yes, the Australian is strong. Yes, I want to buy it, but I'm not going to buy it right now. Why? Because I do have a sell signal. So what this thing does, it identifies for me an entry to buy it, and we're going to do that on the when we get into the individual pairs. Okay, so my buy signal in that Aussie would be above the 1.01. So I've got another 2 or 20 pips before even I think about buying the Aussie. If you want to take a short on the Aussie right now, it is going to be a short, a scalping short, and your stop is going to be based on the index above the 1.0117. The Canadian is the last one, and as you can see, the CAD, even though you have, for example, and Andres, you're asking about candlestick. So if you look at this candlestick, is this a buy or a sell? Just by looking at this, even though if you're looking at this as a traditional candlestick, oh, that's a positive candlestick, but in this case it is not. This is a negative chart pattern, and that is a sell signal for us on the Canadian. So right now I have in order to go back to our hierarchy, okay, where did I put it? So in this case, if I'm going to set up my hierarchy now, what to buy and what to sell, I'm looking first to be a buyer of the US. Let's do a couple of things before we finalize the hierarchy. Also, if you look at gold, you see that right now we have a major sell signal in gold. That's a major sell signal in gold. That is actually pretty close to having a trend change in gold. Okay, Andres, just wait for a second. We'll do the Aussie for you in a minute. Just let's finish this. Guys, do me a favor. I want to be answering all your questions, but I do this thing for you live. Okay? So once you put the question like this, I look and see your question, I lose my track of thought. So whenever I'm done, I will say, guys, do you have any questions? And I will answer it this way. No apology necessary. No apology. But it's just I'm doing this live, and we want to get to. All right. Thanks, Andres. Okay. So this gold is a sell signal, and that is also would be a component to indicate the weakness that we have in the or a potential weakness in the Australian and or in the Canadian. Okay. Also, if you look at copper, which again also relates, even though this is an all-time high, if you will, we do have, don't get me wrong, this is all-time high for the copper. I mean, this is, you got a 25-year high in copper. If I put even a monthly chart, this is what the most expensive copper has been in the last 25 years of data that I have on the screen, and that would indicate it's by no means that this is a trend change, but that is a minor sell signal, which would indicate probably that might lead to some easiness in the Australian. If you look at silver, silver actually is much more stronger than gold, but still it doesn't affect the Aussie. So the Aussie is on the weak side. If you look at wheat, which is one of part of the product, the Australian, or one of the components of the, not components, but one of the commodities that are affected or affects the Australian, you would see that even though with the floods that we have there, then we have a sell signal on the Australian. This is what's most interesting, guys. This is what I want you all to look at. This is the S&P, and we are pretty much at a 2-year high. The 1307, this is a 2-year high. The close is extremely strong, and that should indicate continuation to the upside. So the Dow Jones and the S&P are pushing higher and higher. This is actually now our trend change, as you all see, from is the 1202. So we are about 100 points, 100 handles above our buy signal on the S&P, which was in the middle of which was towards the end of 2010. You can also see that crude oil, this was the, as I pointed out for you the other day, we are now forming this kind of narrowing thing, a triangle, if you will not, every time it breaks above the 92, it turns around and it weakens. So we should be looking for crude to come down towards the 85 kind of level, and then we will see which side it wants to break. So now it has failed to break several times above the 92 level, so the odds are it should be breaking below the 85 towards this low, and that break would be a sign of strength in the dollar. The weakness in the price of crude would represent strength in the price of dollar. Having said that, there is also one interesting thing I want to show you before this is the US Treasury bonds, the 30-year Treasury bonds. And that again is a major sell signal. This means that the price of the bonds, the cost of the bonds, is coming down. It also means that is this setup here that we have on the bonds, that is a major sell signal in the US Treasury. So they are selling the US Treasury right now, and they're taking the proceeds of the US Treasury. You see this? All take a mental picture of this. This is a major trend change in the US Treasury. Now look now at this What you have now is an all-time buy, not an all-time, a last 3-year buy in the S&P and as well as the Dow Jones, which I'm going to put for you here. Look at this. What does that mean? It means that they are now accumulating dollar-based investment, or like stocks and equities. They are purchasing, they believe now that the stock market is going to go up and they are going to get better yields, better returns on their purchases of US equity rather than putting their money in treasury bills. And all that is supportive for the US dollar, because the only way you're going to buy anything in the US stock market, you must purchase the dollar first. So you must buy dollars in order to buy Apple. So what they're doing now, they are selling gold. You've got a sell signal in gold. We got a sell signal in crude. We have a sell signal in the treasury. And we have all these buy signals in dollar-based investments, and that is an indication now that we have to be looking at and focusing on the US dollar. So to finalize that and to wrap up our hierarchy, so the strongest now, I will put this, is the USD is the US dollar. Second would be the British pound. Third, actually there is no third, because I have now weakness in the Swiss franc, because also is synonymous with the weakness in the gold. I have weakness in the Japanese yen. Now I don't have a real sell signal in the Aussie, but I have a big trend up in the Australian dollar, and now this might be an indication that the people who are long the Aussie and have profits might be now concerned about the profits that they are making, and they might look to sell their long positions to take their profits, and that would be what we call here long liquidation. And the Australian is strong, but we might get a push down, which is only because of its long liquidation. So I'm going to put the Aussie with 2 sell signal, and of course the euro is the weakest that we have right now. So the Swiss is very weak, the yen is very weak, the euro is very weak, and the Aussie is on the tip of, if it proceeds down further, we might get some long liquidation. But primarily this week we'll be looking to buying the dollar and versus the other currency. So I'll be buying the dollar Swiss, I'll be looking to buy the dollar yen. I also will be looking to short the Aussie dollar, and I'll also be looking to short the euro dollar. I might be looking to buy the pound Swiss. I might be looking to buy the pound yen. I also might be looking at buying the pound Aussie, and a continuation in the downside with regards to the euro pound. Okay? Now I'm going to go further. So now I'm going to stop this and